Hello everyone. I welcome you all to this live session on Introduction to Programming, and I hope all of you guys are doing well. So I believe all of you are data science enthusiasts and want to get started with this analytical tool named as R. So just to give you guys a context, R is a language which was developed by statisticians for statisticians. And that is why if you want to do any sort of statistical task or exploratory data analysis, R should be your go-to language. So we'll be learning comprehensively about this super language called as R. And before we start off with the session, again, if you guys could just give me a confirmation in the chat if you guys can hear me and if you guys can see my screen and if everything is proper. We will go ahead and start off with the session. You can just put it in the chat. I'll be going through the chat and I'll know if you guys can hear me and if you guys can see my screen. And also in the meanwhile, I'd like to let you know that we have launched a free learning platform called as Great Learning Academy, where you have access to more than 100 courses and all of them are absolutely free. So we have courses with respect to data science, artificial intelligence, cloud computing, machine learning, and a lot more. So we have courses with respect to a lot of diverse domains, and once you complete these courses, you will get a course completion certificate which you can go ahead and add onto your LinkedIn page or onto your resume. And that will be a huge value add to you folks. And also this will be an interactive session. So if you have any doubts anywhere, you can go ahead and put them up in the chat. I will take them up parallelly. Now, before starting off with the session, I see that we have around 70 odd people watching. And I'd request you folks to go ahead and hit the like button. Because if you click on the like button, the YouTube algorithm works in such a way that it would let other people know that we are conducting this live session, this informative session, and if others are interested to join, this will be notified in their recommended section. So if you could just go ahead and hit that like button, that will be very useful to us. And also for all of the folks who are new to our channel, if you haven't yet subscribed, go ahead and also subscribe to our channel and click on the bell icon, as we'll be uploading a lot of tutorials and a lot of live courses on a regular basis. So if you follow our channel regularly, you would know that we conduct live sessions 3 times a day, every single day. And we have live sessions with respect to all of the major domains that are prevalent in all of the industries. Great. Some of you guys are also asking me to speak in Hindi. So today's session will be actually conducted in English. We have other sessions as well which will be conducted in Hindi. And if you want this particular session, the R programming session in Hindi, what we'll do is we'll note it down and maybe we can schedule it next week. So I'll just start off by taking a couple of questions. Siddhant is asking how much time will it take to learn R in total. So if you already know some other language, so let's say if you know other languages such as C, C++ or Java, then learning R will not be that big of a deal because you already know what a programming language is and you already know the basic idea behind how syntax works. And if you know how to write a basic programming syntax, R is actually a very easy language. And I'd say maybe in a couple of weeks time you'll be able to completely learn all of the major topics in R. So some of you guys are asking me to increase the screen size. So before starting off with the coding session, I'll just go ahead and increase the screen size. Just give me a couple of seconds for that. 150% would be too much. I'll keep it 125%. So I hope this is better for you folks. Right. So again, before starting off with the session, we see that the number of viewers have increased. We have around 83 people watching. So before starting off with the session, if you guys could quickly hit on the like button again, that would be awesome. Great. Now, when it comes to any programming language, what you're basically doing is you're working with data. And if you have to work with data, you'd have to store that data somewhere. And this is where variables come in. So you can consider these variables to be temporary storage spaces. Now, when I say a temporary storage space, what I mean is you can store one value in it, and after some time you can go ahead and change the value which was stored in it. So I'm going to give you a basic example of a variable. So I am creating a variable called as A, and inside this I will store the string called as mobile. Now I will print out A over here, and you would see that I have successfully printed this variable A out. But this variable is a temporary storage space. That would mean that I can change the value which is stored in it. Initially I had the value mobile, but after some time I will change it to pen. And this time if I print out A, you would see that the value of mobile has been changed to pen. Similarly, I'll go ahead and change the value again. So this time I will store makeup inside the variable A, and when I print out A, you would see that again the value of pen has been changed to makeup. So this is how we can create a variable and store different values in it. And this is what I mean when I say that we can store we can store different values in a variable. Now a variable is associated with different data types. So what exactly is data? Let's say if you're saying statements such as I love pizza or my name is Sam, that is data. If you're working with numbers such as 3.14 or minus 10,321, that again is data. If you're working with Boolean values such as true or false, that again is data. So data in simple terms is whatever you're working with. So let's start off with numerical data. So numerical data is essentially numbers. So you can either have, let's say, simple integers or decimal point numbers. So simple integers would be, let's say, from minus infinity to plus infinity without the decimal point, without the dot operator. And if you have decimals, you have values such as 3.14, 4.16 and same. So here what I'm going to do is I will create a variable called as num1, and inside this I will store the value 3. Then if I print out num1, you will see this. Now let me check the class of this. So we have a method in R called as class, and inside this I will pass in the num1 variable, and you would see that the data type of this variable which I have just created is numeric. Going ahead, I would want to create a character variable. So I will give the name of this variable as char1, and inside this I will store hello. Then I'll print out char1 over here, and as you see, this is the value which I've stored. And if I check the class, again I'd have to use this class method, and inside this I will pass in char1, and you would see that this is a character variable. Going ahead, similarly, I'll create a logical variable. So in log1, I am storing the value true. And if I check the class of this, class of log1, and you would see that this is logical. And finally, we have another data type called as complex. So maybe in your high school, you would have learned about complex numbers. So in complex numbers, we have the real part and the imaginary part. So when I write a number such as 4 plus 7i, so here 4 is known as the real part and 7 is known as the imaginary part. And when you combine these two together, what you get is a complex number. So a complex number is a combination of real part and the imaginary part. And this I'll go ahead and store in, let's say, comp1. And when I print out comp1 over here, this is what we get. And let me also check the class of this for you folks. class of 4 plus 7. Sorry, I'd have to give in the name of the variable over here, which is class of comp1, and this is a complex variable which we have just created. So this is some basic idea behind variables and data types. Now let me head back to the chat and see if there are any more questions. Pratigya is asking, so he knows Python. Would you be able to understand R? Sure. So Python and R are actually very similar languages, and it actually helps if you know one language. So if you know Python, then I'd say it will be very easy for you to learn R because both of them are dynamically typed languages. Now, when I say a dynamically typed language, what I mean is you don't have to explicitly set the data type of a variable. So if you would have worked with other languages such as C, C++, or Java, when you're creating variables, you would have noticed that you would have to create a variable with this syntax such as int a or char b or string c. But that is not the case when it comes to languages such as R and Python. So R and Python are quite similar in syntax, and if you know Python, it will be very easy for you to learn R as well. And Neo Anderson is saying, I think you should just put J instead of I. So J is for Python. So in Python syntax, we use J, and in R syntax, we use I. Siddhant Wadhwa is saying class in R is equal to type in Python. Yes, that's correct. Golden Game Technology is asking, I want to make an app or software, then what do I want to learn? So if you want to make an Android app, so you can learn Android Studio or Kotlin. So these are two tools which you can learn. Either you can start working with Kotlin or Android software. And I'm not really using any PDF for this session. So if you want the code file again after this session, you can just let us know. We will attach the code file later on. Bhagyashree is asking which is the trending programming language. When it comes to the field of data science, the top two most preferred languages are obviously Python and R. Both of them are equally used, and it would depend on the project which you're currently working on. So let's say if it's more related to statistical analysis or exploratory data analysis, then that project mostly would involve R. And if the project is mostly with respect to machine learning or deep learning, then in that case, the preferred language would be Python. Devendra Mishra is asking in which languages are used. So R again has its applications across diverse industries. So you can use R in the finance industry, you can use R in the biopharmacy industry, you can use R in e-commerce, you can use R in academics. So there are a lot of applications of this R language across various industries. Now I will head back to our teaching session again, and if you have any doubts, you can post them in the chat. I'll head back to it later on. So we have learned about variables and data types. Next, we will learn something about operators. So operators, as the name states, they would help us to perform simple operations on our data. And we have arithmetic operators, logical operators, and so on. So arithmetic operators, again, as the name states, they would help us to perform simple arithmetic calculations. So let's say if you want to add, subtract, multiply, or divide, then we'll be using these arithmetic operators. So what I'll do is I will start off by creating two variables over here. I'll have a variable called as num1 and I'll store the value 10 inside it. Then I'll create a variable called as num2 and I will store the value 20 inside it. So I have created two variables. Now if I would want to add the values which are present in these two variables, what I'll do is I'll just write down num1 plus num2, and this would give me a value of 30 because 10 plus 20 is obviously 30. Similarly, if I would want to subtract these two numbers, what I'll do over here is num1 minus num2. So this time it will be 10 minus 20. So 10 minus 20 will become minus 10. And if I would want to multiply these two numbers, all I would have to do is write down num1 star num2. So star over here would indicate multiplication, and 10 into 20 would become 200. And then if I would want to divide, I just have to give in this forward slash. So it will be num1 forward slash num2. And you would see 10 divided by 20 is equal to 1 by 2, and 1 by 2 is essentially 0.5, and that is the result which we get over here. So these are basic arithmetic operators, and after arithmetic operators we have the assignment operators. So assignment operators would help us to assign a value to a variable or to an object. And we already looked at one assignment operator, which is this equal to symbol. There are two more assignment operators which we have over here. So we can also assign values by using this. We can give the less than symbol and a hyphen, or we can give a hyphen and the greater than symbol. So I'll just show you how to assign values using these two assignment operators. So let's say I have a variable called as h, and if I would want to store the value of 8 inside this, so I'll have h, I'll give in this symbol, and I'll just write down 8. So this is what you have to remember. This is the less than symbol, then the hyphen, and you need to give in 8. Now if I print out h over here, and this is what you get. Now if I would want to give the value first and then the variable later, what I'll do is, let's say if I would want to assign the value 100 to the variable n, so this is what I'll do. I'll give in the value, then I'll give in this assignment operator, which is hyphen, then the greater than symbol, and I'll store it in this variable called as n, and I'll print out n over here, and this is the result. So these are the assignment operators. And after that we have the relational operators, which would help us to find out the relationship between two variables or two operands. So again, I'll just show you those two variables which I had created. I have num1 and num2. 10 is stored in num1, 20 is stored in num2. And if I would want to find out what is the relationship between these two variables. So if I would want to start off by finding out if the value which is stored in num1 is less than the value which is stored in num2. This is what I'll do. I'll write down num1, I'll give in less than symbol, then I'll give in the variable num2, and I'll get the result true, which basically means that the value 10 is less than 20. Now I'd want to check if num1 is greater than num2. Here I'm checking if 10 is greater than 20, and I'll get false because obviously 10 is not greater than 20. Then I'll have the equal to symbol or the double equal to symbol. So I'll have num1 double equal to num2. And with the help of this relationship or relational operator, I'm trying to check if the value which is present in num1 is also equal to the value which is present in num2. And I get a false because obviously 10 is not equal to 20. Then I have the not equal to operator. So here I'll write down num1 is not equal to num2. And I get a true because 10 is not equal to 20. So these are this is some basic information about relational operators. Then finally we have logical operators. In logical operators we have true and false. So true and false, 0 and 1, yes and no, all of these constitute logical operators, and in R especially we denote them with true and false. And just to give you some examples, what happens with these logical operators is, so over here we have something known as the AND operator and the OR operator. So the AND operator would give us a true result only when both of the operands are true. But the OR operator gives you a true result when either of the operands is true. So I'll start off with assigning two variables. I'll have log1, and then log1 I am storing the value true. Then I'll have log2, and then log2 I'll store the value false. So now that I have these two variables, I'll start working with the AND operator. So when I write down log1 and log2, I get a false result because true and false is obviously false. After this, I will write down log2 and log1, and I get a false again because false and true is also false. After this, I will check log2 and log2. I'll get a false again because false and false is also false. And finally, I'll check log1 and log1, and this time I'll get a true result because true and true is equal to true. So this is some basic information about logical operators or the AND operator. Then we have the OR operator, and as I've told you, the OR operator, it gives you a true result when either of the operands is true. So log1 or log1 would give me a true result because true or true is obviously true. Then I have log1 or log2. I get a true result again. Log2 or log1. Again I get a true result. And when I write down log2 or log2, I get a false result because I have false in log2 and false in log2 again. So false or false. This is the only case where I'll be getting a false result when I'm working with the OR operator. So Rohit, I've just given you an example of both the AND operator and OR. And if you're asking if I can write down AND, that is something which we cannot do. I'll just show you. Log1 and log2, we get the error because AND is not the right syntax. You would have to give in this symbol for AND. You can't just write down A and D over here. So I hope that helps you out. So all of these are the basic operators. Now we'll go ahead to an important concept in R, which is about the data structures. So when we only talk about variables, the problem with the variables is we can store only one value in a variable. And that is problematic because if we are dealing with huge amounts of data, then storing only one value at a time is not really efficient. So we have a lot of data structures in R such as vector, list, data frame, matrix, and factor. And we'll be starting off with the most simple data structure in R, which is a vector. So a vector is a single dimensional homogeneous data structure. So understand these words properly. A vector is a single dimensional homogeneous data structure. So when I say a vector is a single dimensional homogeneous data structure, what do I mean by it? Let's start off with single dimensional. A single dimensional would mean that it has only one dimension, obviously. So you don't have rows and columns, you have only data in one single dimension. Then when I say that it is homogeneous, what is meant by homogeneous? So if you have data of similar type, that is known as a homogeneous data structure. Now I'll just give you an example. What I'll do is I'll create three homogeneous vectors over here, and I'll start off by creating this vector1 by storing it in this object called as vec1. To create a vector, we would have to use this C operator, and this is known as the combine operator. And inside this, I will pass in 1, 2, and 3. Now, when I print out vec1, this is the result which we get. And if I check the class of this, so class of vec1, you would see that this is numeric. So we have successfully created a numeric vector. Going ahead, similarly, we'll create a character vector. So vec1, and this time let me just write it down again. So I would actually have to create vec2, and inside vec2 I will have A, B and C, and I'll print out vec2 for you guys. This is the result which we get. And if I check the class of this, class of vec2, this will be character. And finally I'll go ahead and create a logical vector. So I'll write down vec3, and I need to use this combine operator. Inside this I'll have true, false and true. And when it comes to this, you'd have to keep in mind that the keywords, so these are keywords, and you'd have to make sure that all of these are capitals. So if you write TRU, and if you only give T as capital and then you give RUE as small, this will be an error. So if you have to write true, you would have to write everything in capitals. And if you want a shorthand, you can just give in capital T. Similarly, the shorthand for false will be capital F, and over here again the shorthand for this will be capital T. Let me print out vec3, and you would see that I have created this logical vector as well. So we have understood this. Now I'll show you something interesting. Now what if I actually create a vector where I am storing data of multiple types? So what I'll do right now is, let's say I will have 10 true, let me just write down true, 20 false. Now if I print this, what do you think will be the result? So guys, look at this syntax over here. If I print this out, what will be the output over here? Will I be getting an error or will I be getting an output? And if I will get an output, what sort of output will it actually be? Do let me know in the chat. So I believe there would be a delay of a couple of seconds, or maybe 10 to 15 seconds. So I'm just waiting for you guys to reply. Rohit is saying that we'll get an output. Could you let me know what exactly will be the output? I've told you that a vector is of homogeneous data type. So how do you think we'll be getting the output? Bhargav is saying that we'll get 10, 1, 20 and 0. And that is absolutely correct, Bhargav. So what happens over here is a vector maintains its homogeneity. And to maintain its homogeneity, what will happen is it will coerce the value of this logical type to numeric type. So when I print out vec3 over here, what you will see is true becomes 1 and false becomes 0. And this is how the homogeneity is maintained. So what this means is the numerical data type has higher precedence over logical data type. I'll just show you the class of this, class of vec3. This is numeric. So even though we had passed numeric entries and logical entries into the same vector, the logical entries have been coerced into numeric values, and we see that the final class of this is numeric. Rohit is asking, but what if we use characters in it? Interesting question, and we will also see it. Just wait for a couple of minutes and you'll see what happens when we do that. Rohit is asking, is vector like array? When we talk about array with respect to languages such as C, C++ or Java, what happens in array is they are completely, you can only have, you have a predefined size over there, and also you can't really explicitly given different values. So as I've given over here, as I have given 10 and true inside the array, that is not something, 10 and true inside this vector, that is not something which you can do in an array with respect to languages such as C, C++ and Java. But just understand that A vector is a single dimensional homogeneous data structure. So that's what will help you to understand more about this array. Prasanna is asking, can we ask our doubts in the last 10 minutes? Sure, that is absolutely fine. And also, I keep the sessions really interactive. So if you have any doubts, you can put them up in the chat, as I will parallelly take up all of your questions. So I prefer a method where I'm teaching and also taking up your questions parallelly, because it would be more engaging, and also I can see your questions on the go. Golden Game Technology is asking, can we get a certificate for this? For the live sessions, unfortunately, we wouldn't be able to provide the certificate. But if you would want to get a certificate, you can go ahead and enroll in Great Learning Academy. So in Great Learning Academy, once you complete a course, there'll be a quiz or an assignment which you'd have to take. And once you complete that, you'll be awarded with the certificate. So I believe someone from my team will be sending you the link over here. Abhinav is asking, can you show an example for character and numeric vector? Sure, I'll be doing that. We'll be heading to that right now. Right. So guys, again, those people who have joined right now, so if you could just hit the like button, that would be amazing. As I've been telling you guys, YouTube algorithm works in such a way that if you hit the like button, it will be recommended more on people's watch section, and people who are interested to learn the Tuple language called as R, they could join us for this live session, or they'll be notified later on that the team from Great Learning is conducting this beautiful tutorial on R programming. And also, if you could spread the word of mouth about Great Learning to your friends, to your peers, to your colleagues, that is something which you would really appreciate. And for those folks who haven't yet subscribed to our channel, so to all of the folks who are attending the session right now and who are new to our channel and haven't yet subscribed, it's an earnest request from my side to hit the subscribe button, as we'll be uploading a lot of new sessions regularly, and also that is the way by which you can show your love to us. So we are uploading all of these live sessions for free. All you have to do is click on the subscribe button, and that is more than enough for us. Lakshya is asking, bro, how do you earn? That's an interesting question. We don't monetize our YouTube videos because we believe in spreading high quality education to everyone. So we have different methods of earning, but YouTube, we make it absolutely free because we believe in spreading high quality education. So now that we have created this, what we will be doing is, we have worked with vectors. We have created a vector where we have numeric and logical values. After this, what we'll be doing is, as you guys have asked me, what will happen if I have numeric and character in the same vector? So what I'll be doing is, I will create a vector called as mixbag1, and inside this, I'll go ahead and store, I'll have 1, A, 2, B, and C. Now if I print out mixbag1 over here, so why do we have this? So what I'm going to do over here is, I am going to give in a 3, and this is when we'll get the right result. I'll have mixbag1. So as you see over here, when I have numeric and character values in the same vector, the numeric values are coerced into character. This would mean that the character values have higher precedence over numeric entries. So this is how it works, and then we'll just see a final example. So let me just write down as mixbag full, and inside this I'll have 1, A, true 2, then I'll have B, then I'll have false, and I'll print down mixed bag full for you folks over here. And as you see, when I have numeric, character and logical values in the same vector, everything is coerced to character. So what this tells you is character data type has the highest precedence, followed by numeric type, followed by logical type. So if you have entries of different type, this is what happens, and this is how a vector maintains its homogeneity. So I hope all of you guys are able to understand what a vector is and how it properly works. So now that we have created this vector, we will see how to extract individual elements from this vector. So let me just print out this mixed bag full for you folks. So as you see, there are 6 entries, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if I would want to extract the third element from this vector, all I have to do is given the name of the vector, then I'll give in parenthesis over here. So I'll give in the square braces, and inside the square braces I'll give in the index value. So I would want to extract the element which is present in the third position, so I'll give in 3 over here. And as you guys see, I have successfully extracted the element true from this entire vector which I've created. Similarly, let's say if I would want to extract the first 3 elements from this list. So I'll write down mixed bag full, I'll give in parenthesis over here, I'll have 1:3. When I give in 1:3, what this means is I am extracting all of the elements starting from the element which is present at index number 1 going to the element which is present at index number 3, and that is why I have extracted 1A and true. So this is how it works. Pranay is saying it is similar to Python. Yes, absolutely. As I've told you guys, R and Python are very similar. Both of them are dynamically typed languages, and both are languages which are widely used in the data science field. So if you know one language, it becomes easy for you to learn the other language as well. Yes, Rohit, in R the indexing starts from 1, and in Python the indexing starts from 0. So that is something which you'd have to keep in mind. And also if you're coming from other programming languages, also in other programming languages the indexing starts from 0. So R is a language where the index starts from 1. So we have created a vector. Going ahead, we'll be working with the next data structure, which is a list. So what happened with vector was it was a single dimensional homogeneous data structure. And the problem with a homogeneous data structure is we can store elements of only one type. Now what we'll do is we'll create a list. A list is a single dimensional heterogeneous data structure. And when we say a heterogeneous data structure, you can obviously store elements of different data types, and the identity of these different data types will be maintained. So let's just see an example of this. I'll have L1 over here, and inside this list I'll have 1A and true, and I'll print out L1 for you guys. And if we look at this, what you see is I have a numeric value, a character value and a logical value, and all of them have been printed as they are. So 1 is numeric, A is character, true is logical, and none of them have been coerced into any other thing. So I'll just show you the class of this entire thing. So I'll have class of L1. This tells me that this is a list. But if I individually check the data type of the individual elements, let me see, I'll have L1 and I'll give in double parenthesis. If I would, so as you see, this is component 1. If I would want to check the class of component 1, I'll have class L1, and this would tell me that this is numeric. Similarly, if I have class of L2, this is character. Then if I have class of L3, you would see that this is logical. So this essentially means that if you're working with a list, the data types are, the identity is maintained as it is, and they are not coerced into whichever has higher precedence. Now we'll do something interesting again. So this time what we'll do is we'll create a list of different vectors. So I'll have L2 over here. I'll write down list. So we can create a list with this list method. And inside this list, I'll pass in three vectors. The first vector would be a numeric vector. Then I will have a character vector. I'll have A, B, and C. Then after that, I'll have a logical vector. I'll have T, F, and T. Now if I print out L2 over here, this is what we get. So as you see over here, we have three elements. First element, or the first component, is your numeric vector. Second component is a character vector, and the third component is your logical vector. Now in first component we have this, second component we have this, and the third component we have this. So this is interesting. But what if I want to extract individual values from this? So let's say if I would want to extract element B, this value B, from this entire list, how can we do that? So what I'll do is I'll start off by giving the name of the list, which is L2. Then I will give in two parent braces over here, and inside this I'll give in the component value. So this is the second component. From the second component, I would want the second element. So this value B is present in the second component, and it is present at index number 2. And as you see, I have successfully extracted this. Now similarly, let's say if I would want to extract the value 3 from this entire list. So I'll have L1, I'll give in parenthesis over here, I'll give in the first component, and after the first component I'll give in the index value, which will be 3. L1, 1 and 3. Why do we have an A over here? This is actually L2 and not L1, and as you see, this is the result which we get over here. So I hope you guys get this. So we have looked at vector, we have looked at list. Let me head back to the chat and see if there are any more questions. Golden Game Technology is again asking, for certificate, how many weeks do we have to attend the class? So if it's a live session tutorial series, then you'd have to attend all of those live sessions for you to get the certificate. But this is not a live session series. So if you want to earn the certificate, you can go to Great Learning Academy. So we have more than 100 courses over there. And when you complete any of that course, once you complete that course, you would have to complete an assignment or a quiz. And when you complete an assignment or a quiz, that is when you'll be earning the certificate. Rohit is asking, which other IDE is available for R other than RStudio? So I'm not really sure about this because I've mostly been working with RStudio. You can also work with Anaconda. So Anaconda also provides you, Anaconda again provides a Jupyter notebook, and in Jupyter notebook you can work with both R as well as Python. And apart from Jupyter and RStudio, I haven't really used any other IDE for R, so maybe you guys can check that out later. Vidya is asking, vector can store each element with a specific data type as defined. That is sort of true. When we initially given values of different data types, what happens is whichever value has the highest precedence, every other value is coerced into that particular data type. Shikha is asking, how can we download IDE for R, or can we code R programs in Jupyter or Colab Notebook? You can code R in Jupyter Notebook as well. So that is something which you can do. I'll just, if some of you folks are new to RStudio, I'll just show you guys how to do this. What I'll do is I'll just give you guys an example. So I'll just write down download RStudio. So just go to Google, download RStudio. click on this first link over here. And over here you would have this free version, RStudio Desktop. Click on download again. You would have download RStudio for Windows, and again, since R is platform independent, you can download it for Windows, Mac or Ubuntu. And since I have a Windows system, I've downloaded it for Windows. So you can just go ahead and click on this, and this is how you'll be able to download RStudio. So for all of the folks who don't know how to download this is how you can do it. Faizul Hassan is asking, can we import libraries like Python in R? Yes, absolutely, you can do that, and it's very simple to import packages in R. So you see this tab over here. This is the packages tab. Just click on this. You will have this install button. Click on install button. And over here you can just give in the name of the library whichever you'd want to install. So there's a library called as ggplot2 for visualization. If I would want to install this, I'll just give in the name of this. When I click on install, the library would be automatically installed. Similarly, there's another package called as dplyr. If I'd want to install this, I'll just click on install, and again the package would be installed. So as simple as that. So again, I'll head back to the to the teaching section again. In the meanwhile, you can put up your questions. So all of your questions, again, I'll take it up later on. So guys, quickly, we've got around 10 more minutes of this session left, and if we can quickly hit around 150 likes, that will be awesome. So we've got 133 likes as of now. So let's just see if we can hit 150 likes before we end the session. That will be awesome. And also guys, if you can also subscribe to the channel, that will be wonderful. If you haven't hit subscribe, please go ahead, click on the subscribe button. That will mean a lot to us. So we have finished off with vector, we have finished off with list. Then we have something called as a matrix. Let me just show you guys. So till now we've worked with single dimensional data. Now we'll be working with two-dimensional data. So in two-dimensional data, obviously we'll have rows and columns. Now a matrix is a single dimensional homogeneous data structure. So homogeneous data structure, again, you can store elements of only one single data type. And when I say two-dimensional, obviously you'll have rows and columns. And that is how you work with a matrix. So to create a matrix in R, we'll be using the matrix method. So as you see over here, I am creating a matrix like this. So I have the matrix method. Inside this, I will pass in a vector of values. So I'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, and this is what I'll be storing in this object called as M1. Let me just print out M1 for you guys. So as you see, I have two index values over here. So this index which you see, this is for the column, and this index which you see, this is for the row. So this value or this element is present at cell number 1, 1. This element is present at cell number 2, 1. This element is present at cell number 3, 1. Now, I'll just show you the class of this as well, just to be sure that this actually is a metric. So class of M1, and you would see that this is of matrix. But the problem is we have all of the elements in just one column. But I would want to specify this in a certain number of rows and a certain number of columns. So what I'll do is, I have this attribute called as nRow, and in nRow I will set the number of rows to be equal to 2, and this time I will print out M1. So as you see, I have 2 rows and 3 columns. So this is how a matrix works. And again, so here as you see, the elements are stored with respect to column. When I say with respect to column, as you see 1 and 2. So 1 and 2 are, these are like inserted column wise, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now instead of having these values column wise, if I want them row wise, I have another attribute called as by row, and I'll set by row to be equal to true. Then if I print out M1, you would see that the elements are inserted row wise. So I have 1, 2, 3 in the first row, 4, 5, 6 in the second row. And this is how we can work with metrics. I'll just print out M1 again. Now let's just see how can we extract individual values from this. If I would want to extract this element 5 from this matrix M1. So here, look at this. So this element 5 is present at index 2, 2. So I'll write down M1 and inside parenthesis, I'll just give in 2, 2, and this is the result which we get. Similarly, if I would want to extract this element 3, this is present at cell number 1, 3. So I'll have M1 and inside this I will give in 1, 3, and we have extracted 3 from this entire matrix. So this is how we can work with a matrix as well. Then going ahead, we'll look at one final data structure which is known as a data frame. So data frame is, again, if you have worked with Python, you would know what a data frame is. And for those of you folks who haven't worked with Python, you can consider this to be a simple table. So if you have worked with Excel, you have rows and columns and you have a table in Excel. Similarly, in SQL as well, you work with tables. So that table in R and Python is known as a data frame, and that becomes the core where you perform all of your data analysis operations. So let me just go ahead and create a data frame for you guys. To create a data frame, we'll be using this method called as data.frame. And here I'll be creating a data frame. Again, is a heterogeneous two-dimensional data structure. So it's two-dimensional, that is why we'll have rows and columns. It's heterogeneous, which means that we can have elements of different data types. So here I would want to create a simple data frame which will give me the names and marks of students. So I'll create the first column called as name, and inside this I'll give in 3 names. The first name will be Matt, then we'll have Sam. After this we'll have Bob. Then I'll create another column called as marks. So let's say Matt has got 78 marks, then we have Sam who has got 34 marks, and we have Bob who has got 90 marks. And this I'll go ahead and store in this data frame called as student. Now if I just print this out, this is how we have created our data frame. So as you see over here, our data frame comprises of character values and numeric values as well. Now if I would want to individually extract the columns, so let's say if I would want to extract only the name column from this data frame, I'd have to give in student, which is the name of this data frame. I'll give in this dollar symbol, then I will give in the name of the column, which is name again. So as you see, I have extracted this column. Similarly, if I would want to extract the marks column, I'll write down student dollar marks. And as you see, I have extracted all of the marks from this data frame. And there's a special method called as view. So if I would want to have a glance at, let's say some of, and if I would just want to, now normally when you're working with huge data sets, there'll be a lot of rows and a lot of columns. And if you would want to have a nice glance at it, you can use the view method. And inside the view method, you can just give in the name of the data frame. So as you see over here, view of student gives me this nice little glance at this data frame which I have just created. So guys, we have covered most of the fundamentals of our programming, and I'll head back to the chat and see if there are any more questions. Harshpriya is asking, is metric similar to array in Python? Yes, you can say it is analogous to array in Python. That would actually be right. Pranay is asking us, are front end or a back end language? The answer that would be neither to both of them. So R is neither a full-fledged front-end language, it is nor a full-fledged back-end language. R is a statistical tool. R is an analytical tool, right? So you'd have to understand that the purpose of R is completely different. It is an analytical tool. You're not developing something from this. It is not a development language. It is an analytical tool. So any sort of analysis that you'd want to do, any sort of statistical analysis, any sort of exploratory data analysis, any sort of machine learning algorithm that you'd want to apply, then that is where you will use this language called as R. So I hope you get that. Pranit Kumar CH, where can we download RStudio? So if you go back in the session, so you'll know I've just showed you guys how to download RStudio. If you maybe go back, you'll know how to download RStudio. Rohit is asking, how am I cleaning the typed code? So the command is Control L. So when I just, let's see if I have something like this, and if I press Control L, then everything will be cleaned from the console. Venkatesh is asking, is the index starting from 1? Yes, the index is starting from 1 over here. Harshpriya is asking, is Python front-end or back-end? The answer to that is again not really, you're not get a specific answer because Python is a very versatile language. You can do a lot of things with Python. You can do game development, you can do web development, you can do back-end development, you can also do front-end development, you can do full stack development, you can implement machine learning algorithms, and you can also implement deep learning algorithms. So Python, to simply put, is a versatile language. You can you can develop websites with the help of frameworks such as Django and Flask. You can also do back-end development with Python. You can also implement machine learning and deep learning tasks with Python. So Python is extremely versatile. Sheetal is asking, is it sufficient to learn Python and R language to become a data scientist? To answer that, my question will be no, and I'll tell you why. So to become a data scientist, there are 3 basic pillars. The first pillar would be statistics. You'd have to be really good at statistics as it forms the platform for all of the other things. You'd have to know things such as measures of central tendency, measures of deviation, normal distribution, central limit theorem, and so on. Now, once you're good with this, you need an analytical tool. So there, I'd recommend you guys to learn both Python as well as R. After that, you'd have to also comprehensively know about the ML algorithms. You'd have to know algorithms such as linear regression, logistic regression, decision tree, random forest, and so on. And not just the code implementation of it, you'd have to know the mathematical concept of how these algorithms actually work. So these are the 3 basic pillars, and if you master all of these 3 basic pillars, it'll be easy for you to crack any data science interview. So on that note, I'll be signing off. Thank you very much for attending the session. And just a simple reminder, guys, if you haven't yet liked the session, just go ahead, click on the like button. That would be very helpful to us. If you haven't yet subscribed to our channel, go ahead, please click on the subscribe button and also click the bell icon. So thank you very much. Please be safe and have a happy learning.